Hi, this is Gary Brown. Welcome to Sauntering with God. Welcome to your new life. I'm here for our third and final segment with my good friend and ministry partner, Ron Truman. And Ron, the last two that we talked about, in the first one, talked a lot about letting go, about what it meant to, to stop everything, and how God had led me to eventually leave the political realm, leave even pastoring a church,
giving sermons.
I mean, wow. I was blown away actually, because I was not anticipating this. But what it did is that when I got rid of all I was doing for God, it gave me this baseline, this rest, to where I was gonna allow God to rebuild what He was doing through me, rebuild a ministry based on that, rather than on wondering if anything had initiated with me. And it was in that process, and it took over a year. I'd say it was maybe pushing 2 years, when a mutual friend of ours, Adam, I mentored Adam for a while out of the drug and alcohol rehab program, the Good Samaritan program sponsored by the Altar Church locally. I'd begun to mentor Adam when he came out of that program, but I hadn't seen him in almost a year. So I get a text saying, let's have breakfast at Gross Donuts. And Gross is not describing the donuts for people who don't live in Coeur d'Alene. It's the family that owns the donut shop. His last name is Gross.
Important.
But anyway, he wanted to have breakfast at Gross Donuts. I said, sure, let's do it. And so I pull up, and John Padula, another mutual friend who's actually involved with the Altar Church and the Good Sam program, John was getting out of his truck at the same time I'm getting out of my SUV, and he says, Gary, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm here having breakfast with Adam. And he said, oh, I'm here having breakfast with Adam. I said, you are? He said, yeah, this is our house facilitator meeting. See, John kind of oversees the aftercare program, and they have several houses they call intensive outpatient houses. And so he was having a meeting with all the leaders of those houses, and Adam was one of the leaders. And I don't know how Adam got it confused, but I said, John, listen, you guys have your meeting and I'll run on. He said, no, come on, Gary, you know all these guys. Come meet with us. So I go and I sit down and I meet with you guys during your meeting, and you were one of those house facilitators.
I was.
Yeah.
And as we talked, I don't remember all the details, but I remember thinking, well, hearing that your heart was really for mentoring, and you have a background in training, and those two things both are dear to my heart, and so I knew that I wanted to get together with you. I didn't know beyond that, just I'd like to get to know this guy.
So you didn't know me and I didn't know you, and then all of a sudden we're just thrown together in this meeting, and we decided to talk afterwards. Well, that was over 2 years ago. Yeah. And it had been amazing what God's done through this. If you didn't know better, you would say this happenstance or happen chance meeting. I have learned throughout this, what I now call the empowerment stage. I didn't know that's what it was at the time, wasn't expecting it. But now learning what it's like to be empowered by God to do this. You and I we've grown closer, and we've become partners in ministry. And neither one of us even knew what was going on through it all.
Yeah. What I know, one of the things that attracted me to you, knowing that you were a pastor at this time, but as we talked privately, you talked about, as a pastor, how you've come to believe that it's important when people come into your life to not see where you can plug them in, Rather, it's like, God, why did you bring Ron into my life? Or why did you bring so-and-so into my life or into our church? Talk about that.
Yeah, it's quite a difference because
Very big.
I used to, that question to me was a mute point before the detox, because I figured these folks are coming here and I need to lure them in, and I need to somehow get them involved in the church. I need to get them involved in the vision. They need to go through our new member class, and the need to start tithing. I mean, there's all these things that start going through your mind that you're just programmed to do. But at the time the detox started, for a couple of years before I retired, I started really shifting. And the shift became when someone walked in the door, God, why did you bring them here? And because I became more concerned about, God, how did you make them? What are you doing through those people? And what can I do as a pastor to help them to hear you and to know what you're doing in their life, regardless if they come to this church or not? And that was completely different. And that's not something I planned. That's just something that evolved as I let go. Mm-hmm. And as I began to see that God was working with people, and my job was to help them find out what God was doing in them. Now, Ron, what's interesting too, I have this God-given passion to hike. And so there was a page on Facebook opened up for North Idaho hikers, and I joined it. And I noticed a lot of people were new and didn't know where to hike. So I just I said, hey, you guys want to get together and go hiking? Because I knew a lot of the trails. And so I started having groups of 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 that would start to hike. And then on one of those hikes, Lisa and her husband Glenn came on one of those hikes, and they asked me, what do you do? And I started telling them about the mentoring and and pouring into guys coming out of the drug and alcohol rehab. And they said, we love that. And then I wrote a book. I didn't mean to write a book. I was taking notes on my detox. Some friends read it and said that needs to be a book. I didn't mean to write a book. So
you kept a journal throughout this whole 2+ years.
Yeah, just to read it and just to say, okay, what is God saying to me? Mm-hmm. Well, then what happened was they said it needs to be a book. So I took it to a local author and a local editor, and I asked him. I said, Rob, what do you think? Do you think this, read it and no pressure? He said, no, this needs to be a book. So I ended up writing a book that I didn't mean to write. So I'm meeting people I didn't mean to meet. I'm just acting out of the passions of my heart to hike. All I did was take notes that turned out to be a book. And I meet you, and all these things just start happening to me. Mm-hmm. And it's just amazing what God is doing through all this. We the group wanted to do a book study, my hiking group. So, okay, well, I never thought about that. So we all got together, and we week by week went through the book. And after that, they said, what are we going to do? I said, I don't know. Y'all want to get together, just keep meeting and see what God does? And that's turned into a Sunday group that ebbs and flows. Sometimes there's a lot of people, and sometimes there's a few. But it's turned into really a strong support group for the men coming out of drug and alcohol rehab, but also a place to plug them into members of the community. And we've seen God, we've bought families, one family a car. We helped Terry start a construction business. We've been a support system for young men like Ben and others that God is really touching and changing their life, sometimes slowly and sometimes the road is bumpy. But we have seen God work miracles in people's lives, and we didn't set out to do a thing.
Mm-hmm. You've had, and your journey has had a profound influence on me, because I've been going through some things in my life that I've had to really examine my life and ministry. What am I why am I here, and all of those deep questions, and not feeling, and just really needing a sense of direction. And you've been, because you asked that question, and you've come alongside of me in that way, you've helped me to answer a lot of those questions and to get help myself.
Yeah. Well, it works both ways, brother. You've been a real blessing to me in ways you never know. Ministry, when I was a pastor, pastoring can be a very lonely thing. And to have someone to travel together with and to work together with in this ministry has meant the world to me.
There's a statement that you've made, and I want to be careful with this, but you've said, I had to get out of the pastorate in order to begin ministering to people.
That's what I said, and that's what it was. It's funny, I was so busy taking care of the church and the structure and the administration that I didn't have time to do ministry. I didn't have time to mentor, didn't have time to train.
Which were your real passions.
Those were my real passions. And so that's what led to my retirement, was I said, you know what, God, if I want to spend the rest of my time ministering to people, not providing this big, massive, growing structure, which is really an extension of me. And I don't want to out the church or pastors on this, but that's really what it is. It's an extension of me, my vision, and recruiting people to me. I wanted to help people understand who God had made them to be in the context of who they are. And that has been so fulfilling that it's not centered, I feel like, centered on me anymore.
Not only fulfilling, but would you say it's been freeing?
Oh, very freeing.
Because you don't have to manage. You don't have the responsibility of what God is doing in somebody else.
Yeah, it's like I said in the last video. It's my job to love people. It's God's job to change people. And so my job is to love and to pour my heart out to God and to others. And then as I walk with them, as we walk with them, God is changing them. And and it's expanding now. We're doing retreats now. We've done 2 or 3 retreats now to where we've taken some men off. We're taking men and women both together. I'm even starting to meet with a group of graduating high school and college students. I'm going to be doing a retreat pretty soon with men in the community, leaders in the community, and talking to them about sauntering, talking with them about what it means to let go, rest, and for God to empower you. And it's just starting to blossom and bloom and take off and go everywhere. But it never would have happened, Ron, had I not at the very beginning said, I'm going to intentionally make space and time in my calendar and make space in my heart for God to do something in me.
And then to wait.
Then to wait and to let it happen. And just to trust
and to not
God.
jump out ahead of God.
That's right. Just to trust God that He can do it.
It had to be difficult. You had to find yourself, wanting to jump at things and
all the time. You know what I mean? It's hard to keep your heart in check when all your life you've been taught to produce, and that it was your responsibility to accomplish things for God.
And that's being a leader.
Yeah, but now letting it come to me is become second nature. Now I still have to keep myself in check, but I'm amazed about how I don't get up in the morning now thinking, what have I got to do for you, God? God, what are you going to do through me?
Well, what can you tell people if they feel like they want to do a detox? What would that even look like?
Well, first you can email me at Gary@reachamerica.org, Gary@reachamerica.org, and I'd be glad to talk to anybody about this, because that's what the retreats, I think that's the reason God's bringing in the retreats, is that I would think the thing to do would probably attend one of our retreats and just experience a little bit of it, just get a taste of what it is. And then I think what will happen with each individual, God will design it. Because it doesn't need to be exactly like mine. I think that's a problem we have. We want to try to cookie cutter what happened to us and have it happen to others, but that's not the way the Spirit works. And so, but I think if we could just sit down and meet or talk on the phone or email, then if we could, if you could come to a retreat perhaps, or then that way you can be immersed a little bit in these truths and these realities, and begin a little bit of it yourself and get a taste of it. Also, God has led me to create a 10-week process. It's a 10-week study called Sauntering with God that helps people through this process. So, there's the tool of the retreats, and then the Sauntering with God's way we call it the Life Sauntering Experience, that you can find it at saunteringwithgod.com. So there are some things coming out of this that are going to help people who truly want to do that examination and want to get rid of everything that doesn't look like Jesus and discover that baseline, so then they can begin to have God fill in the blanks in their lives about what He's doing in the world and through them. Well, thank you for listening in, for watching the 3 parts of my spiritual detox experience. If you are interested in learning what spiritual detox may look like for you, you can reach me at Gary, Gary, at reachamerica.org, Gary at reachamerica.org, or you can take a look at the website, saunteringwithgod.com. saunteringwithgod.com. You can check out the website and check out the 10-week sauntering experience, which is right there online, or we have it in book form. Or if you choose, you can contact me from the website from the contact page. I want to thank Ron Truman, my good friend, for the interview, and thank you again so much for listening. And I look forward to seeing you on the trail of life. Happy sauntering.